I think Bitcoin solves half of everything. Half of all the problems the human race face have to do with energy balance and economic balance and money, property, and energy. And Bitcoin represents a digital transformation of money, property, and energy. And that's profound. And if you sum up the total value of all products, services, and assets and properties in the human race, you probably got to balance it with an equivalent amount of money. So it's $500 trillion or a quadrillion dollars worth of stuff, and on the other side is the backhaul energy network to move it and to distribute it over time and over space and trade and transact.
Michael Saylor is one of the most outspoken supporters of Bitcoin in the entire space, and he also truly spearheaded the mainstream adoption and institutional wave of companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. What many people don't know is that Saylor has been an extremely successful long-term investor, making huge sums of money on emerging tech, investing in Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google in their early stages, writing a book named The Mobile Wave, explaining how these exponential technologies are going to change the world. In his latest interview, he breaks down why Bitcoin is an even more revolutionary breakthrough and why it's worth trillions of dollars. Also, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy finance content, consider subscribing or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind.
So Bitcoin is a pretty profound thing, but if we look at the mobile wave in the book I was writing, I was discussing the digital transformation of stuff, and especially the chapter of that digital transformation related to the dissemination of mobile devices. So what happens when software moves to its vapor state, when the software leaps onto a mobile phone and billions of people have the software in their pockets? How is that different than the software running on the internet or the software running on a PC computer? And if you think about software running on a mainframe, where a PC is kind of like solid state, and when the software gets to a laptop, it looks like liquid state, and when the software gets to a mobile phone, it feels like vapor state. And the significance of the mobile wave was now I could have software that I sleep with. So if the software is in the car, now I can conceptualize a digitally transformed map. And a digital map, first I take a Ramagnoli atlas and I dematerialize it so it's weightless. Then I carry it with me all the time. Then I put 10 million pages of satellite images on it, so it becomes 1,000,000 times richer. Then I start to feed telemetry back in the system so I know the traffic on all the arteries in real time. It gets smarter. Then I start to plug in all the places you might go. Then I plug in whether people are there now. And then I start to tell you that these are the restaurants that people are at, and then I tell you that they're closed, and then I tell you can't get there because there's a traffic jam. And if you keep following that thread, eventually I put some AI on it and I tell you how to get there, which turn left, turn right. Then I tell you don't bother to go. Then of course ultimately I build it into a car, and you get in the car and you say just take me to a nice place. Right. And the car drives you there. All of those things are logical continuations of the idea of a digital map, right, in the mobile era. Each of those digital transformations of information, digital maps, digital music, digital books, digital education, all of those things created a profound increase in productivity for the human race. I could give 1 billion people $1 million worth of books for the variable cost of electricity. What we had was a technology that allows us to give billions and billions of people education, erudition, insight, or joy, right? Take the idea of a Beethoven Fifth Symphony played by the Berlin Philharmonic and calculate the cost of that, record it, put it in an MP3 file, then send it to 1 billion people, then play it back 100 times a year. And now what you realize is that the physical cost, of course, to do that is
effectively
impossible.
Zero, right?
If you do it physically with a Berlin Philharmonic, it would cost you all the energy of the human race. In fact, if the entire human race wanted to do nothing but play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony for everybody, they couldn't do it, right? So the cost to do it in the physical world is prohibitive. And in the digital world, I can give everybody in the human race every minute of the day in the palm of their hand, every great symphony composed by everybody.
And you can even give them the ability to transform it in whatever ways they feel like at that moment.
To even go beyond that, right? Now, what's that worth? Well, that creates trillion-dollar networks of Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. So we create an entire $50 trillion economy through the digital transformation of information when we mobilize it. But that entire wave, digital music, digital maps, digital messages that created the Apple, Amazon, and Facebooks, it didn't include the transformation of digital energy. And the fundamental difference between digital energy and digital information is encapsulated colloquially in the phrase, Satoshi solved the double spin problem. Like, that's the lowbrow thing to say. But an engineer would say, Satoshi figured out how to implement conservation of energy in cyberspace. The difference between me sending you the MP3 file and me sending you the Bitcoin file is the Bitcoin had $1 billion on it. And when I sent it, I lost it. But when I sent you the MP3 file and it had Beethoven's Fifth Symphony on it, I kept it and I could send it 1 million more times an hour. So information is non-conservative. Energy is conservative. Bitcoin represents conservation of energy. So what is the universe? The universe is made of energy. What is matter? Matter is energy, right? You're a low frequency ball of energy. You'll last on this earth 100 years, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The human race is vibrating. On the other hand, everything is different frequency. Once you see it that way, what you realize is that Bitcoin is digital energy. What is digital property? It's low frequency energy. What is property? What is a house? It's low frequency money. I give you $1 million, you want to save it for 20 years. If you keep it in fiat currency, you won't have any money in 20 years. You put it to a house, you'll have it. But on the other hand, how fast can you vibrate a house? It takes you a decade, takes you 2 decades to change a house back and forth. So the significance here, if the digital information revolution was worth 10 to 30 trillion dollars to the human race, or some number like that, the digital energy revolution is an order of magnitude more, right? If I said to you, you have a choice. You can give up all the money in the world, everything you have and everything you're ever going to have, or you can let me delete your photos off your iPhone. Which of them is more important to you? You have to have a dose of humility with regard to these fundamental paradigm shifts, because the people that solved the problem of flying through the air with the greatest of ease were bicycle mechanics. They were not aerospace engineers, they were not physicists, they were not mathematicians, they were not politicians, they were not billionaires, they were literally middle-class bicycle mechanics out of Dayton, Ohio. Not the place you would expect they would solve the problem, not the type of people. If you roll the clock back to another great innovation, the discovery of longitude on the ocean. How do we actually navigate across the ocean? It was the solution was attempted by the Newtonian professors of mathematics at Cambridge and Oxford, and they were PhDs, and none of them could solve the problem. Not Newton, not Newton's disciples, nobody. The problem was solved by John Harrison, who was an uneducated clockmaker, and he solved it by making a clock that kept proper time. He didn't solve it with star charts or calculus of variations or computational theory or any amount of highbrow thinking. He was a blue-collar laborer. And so now you go forward to Satoshi. The fundamental problem of economics. How do you solve the coincidence of wants between everybody in the human race over time and space forever? Right? How do you solve the economic problem of getting people to cooperate, in an efficient fashion, right? It wasn't solved by any economist, and it wasn't solved by any organization or governmental agency that should have solved it, solved by the cypherpunks, right? Solved by, I think, a generalist engineer that knew a decent amount about computer programming. But if you look at all the crypto world that's dominated by the computer programmers, they screw up everything, right? All of the other crypto tokens that are dominated by software engineers are screwed up because they understand a lot of software engineering, but they don't understand thermodynamics or physical engineering or systems engineering or all the other disciplines you need. So Satoshi represented one part economics and one part systems engineering and one part computer engineering and one part game theory and one part practical political science and a little bit, all of the mechanisms you see in thermostats, the difficulty adjustment. It's a first order negative feedback loop. Okay, invented by Satoshi? No, and maybe invented by Archimedes, right? It's in water clocks. It's in stuff since the beginning of time. Every mechanical engineer understands this stuff. So what you had was a generalist engineer, right? Not a specialist, throwing out a very practical solution, not the elegant, beautiful thing people would expected, but a practical solution that turned out to be as profound as longitude, as profound as human flight, as profound as electricity or fire.